everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the London's Pretty Cool podcast. My name's Erin.
And I'm Patrick.
And we are back with another amazing guest for the London's Pretty Cool podcast. We are sitting here with Dorothy Downs, founder and executive director of the Forest City Film Festival. How are you tonight, Dorothy?
Very, very good. It's getting down to the final hours before the film festival starts. So yes, I've been pretty busy.
These are very exciting times, so we really appreciate you taking the time aside to speak to us about the film festival.
Oh, my pleasure, because London is pretty cool.
All right, so let's just jump right into it. So starting right from the beginning, what gave you the idea to start the Forest City Film Festival?
Okay, going back, it's 6 years ago. Actually, it's 7 years ago that I got the idea. My oldest son was a precocious filmmaking teenager, and he had been making films since he was a young guy. I've been in the film industry, so just don't get me wrong. This isn't because I had a precocious filmmaking child. He was partly a precocious filmmaking child because I had been in the film industry, and I'd given him some opportunities that really spurred him into a love of film. And he created a wonderful film. He wrote it and directed it and acted in it. And I thought I would give him a little bit of a really good experience, more real world experience. And I hired a really good DOP that had worked in the Toronto industry and was here in London, and another friend who was really good at screenwriting, and just let them work together on it. And he finished the film and submitted it around, and it got into the Raindance Film Festival over in England. So Raindance is, it's one of the biggest independent film festivals in the world. And so that was very exciting to get into that festival. So of course, we trucked over. Well, we didn't truck over. We would have drowned. We flew over, and really enjoyed it. I mean, I loved it. It is a very industry focused film festival, and it was inspiring, and tons of great young talent, new talent. And so on the way back, I started thinking, gosh, it's a shame that nobody's going to have a chance in London to see Matthew's film. And I've got some other friends that have made some films, one that just got into Cannes, and, there were some really good films, and there's such talent in London, that I thought, nah, you know what, I'm going to just see if I can put together a screening, and we'll just show them all like a little mini film festival. Then when I got home, I thought, well, it maybe makes more sense just to see if there's a film festival. And I started searching for nearby film festivals that we could enjoy, and would send the film to possibly. And I realized that London was the only town of its size that I could find like anywhere in North America, anywhere. I searched and searched that didn't have a long-standing and successful film festival.
Wow.
Really?
So yeah. So and we'd had a film festival a few years ago, a little film festival that was coincidentally called the Forest City Film Festival. It was, they had a few shorts, and I thought, that's a good, I'll use that name. They've got a starting place there. And so I got a couple of my filmmaker friends together, and we brainstormed what was important, and we put together a mission statement. And then I put together the board of directors, the founding board of directors, and we went and got our registered charity, and we just put together the first festival. It was, and that was, a long time ago, 6 years ago, 1,200 people at our first festival. So we've grown a long way since there.
That's incredible from the first one. I'm sorry, Erin. I didn't mean to step on your question there, but that's incredible for your first festival to have 1,200 people come out. That's incredible.
It was, and it was only 3 days, and we had 25 films, and we had, right off the bat, we knew we wanted to celebrate filmmakers and films connected to this region. So we really, London has this way. I'm a Londoner from way, way back, and I have witnessed how we we don't feel that something's really good if it's from here. It sort of has to come from somewhere else, and then we can respect it. But if it's from here, it's harder. It seems harder for us to respect it. And I want us to stop that because, you know, having been in the theater community for a long time, I have witnessed amazing performers. I mean, some of the best performances I have ever seen in my life have been here in London. And so I know that we've got this incredible talent, and yet I have seen people, friends, acquaintances go to Toronto rather than come and stay and see these fantastic, amazing, talented people doing things that are, you know, intimate and incredible. They'd rather go to Toronto, and it's because of that. It's because they just don't understand the value of our artists. Yeah. So that's one of my goals.
Love that. That's so interesting to make that point, because you're right. That reminds me of the music industry, or the music scene, excuse me, here in London. Yeah. It's exactly the same. You know, there's a big push to just, let's go to Toronto. That's where you can really make it big and everything. And it's like, there are people here that want to support the community and like build a community of musicians here as well. Same thing like you're talking about with filmmakers.
With film, yeah. And I mean, for artists, for performing artists, they often have come back from Toronto because it's a real rat race and they want to live a more well-rounded lifestyle. And so being here and being able to do your art, your craft is, it's an honor and it's wonderful. And people, that's why we have such incredible theater here, is because there's a lot of people who come back here because they don't want to, you know, be in Toronto and get the tiny little roles. When they're here, they can get, you know, great roles, really do it right, do the things that in Toronto they never have a hope of doing because there's so many people trying to get the same piece of action. And so it's the same in the film industry, you know, that it's easier when you're a little bit of a distance from that huge ball of energy that is the industry in Toronto. It's like, I always sort of think of that industry as being like a huge fortress with a wall around it. And there's no way of finding the door. You know, you walk and walk and walk for ages and you slog against, you know, through swamps and everything else. And you can't find the door to this fortress that's right there, but there's no way in. And so what we're trying to do at this film festival is be like a ladder that, you know, you can put up against the wall and you can find a way to climb up and get your way into the huge industry that's in Toronto. So it's a friendlier place to do business. And the industry is also pushing out from Toronto like crazy. So there's a lot of, there's just not enough space, in studio space. They're running out of locations there. There's just so much happening in the industry in Toronto that there's a lot pushing this way anyway. So it's really good timing.
Amazing.
I was kind of curious at the beginning, you said it wasn't just because of your son, you have your own background. What is your background in the film industry?
So, well, I had a production company, and I did television shows. So I put together 7 different television series, a one-off documentary. I worked with a few other production companies to bring their films into town, to help with funding, to help with casting. And I've been a performer. So I've been on stage and in front of the camera since, maybe I shouldn't even mention when, for a long time. I hazard a guess, maybe longer than you've been on the planet. I have been doing this. So, yeah. And so I've been trying for a long time to bring the industry here to London. Mm-hmm. And, because I wanted to have this lifestyle. I love the town. It's beautiful. It's got a great lifestyle. And I love Toronto too. Don't get me wrong. I love the action and the activity of the busier city, but we've got a bit of that here. And we've also got just such beautiful surroundings and a wonderful vibe and this great creative energy. I don't know where that comes from, but we really have an amazing, and I think we're far enough away from Toronto to really have our own identity. You know, we're not like a bedroom community. And so we've really got our own identity and a great level of creativity. Should be celebrated.
Speaking of how, many creatives there are in the city, and, how often they want to get their art out to people, but maybe don't always have the best way to do it. In those first few years, was it difficult to find submissions, or were filmmakers interested right from the start?
Right from the start. Oh yeah. No, it was, I think the first year we maybe had 40 or 50 submissions because people really didn't know about us at all. But after that, our submissions have just gone, way up. We always have a really good selection. And this year we have 92 films altogether. Wow. So first year, 24 films, and now we're at 92 films. I kind of want to keep it at about this. And, I think that it's really nice to have, every film is connected to the region this year. It's nice to expand out a bit. I'd like to bring in others. As far as the competition, the films in competition, they'll always just be films that are connected to the region. You have to have that connection to actually compete here. But to bring other films in, I think we'll end up doing more and more of that.
And how have you kind of seen the festival grow since it's begun? Like you said, it's been 7 years. So what have been
every year we do something different, right? Like I'm always trying to keep it fresh and trying to, the idea is ultimately, our end goal, where we want to be, frankly, honestly, we want to be a whole week of celebrating everything film connected to Southwestern Ontario. So that means we want to celebrate podcasts. Yes, web series. We want to celebrate music videos, which we already do. So we brought that in last year. We want to celebrate experimental films. So we brought that in this year. We brought animations in the year before. So we've, every year we try to pepper in something new. And we brought virtual reality in one year, and we'd love to see that come back. It really, and this year we brought, as well as the experimental films, we've also brought in the Ontario Screen Creators Conference. So this is a huge deal. And it's been a lot of work, but I think it's going to be worthwhile ultimately. I think that there's a real need for filmmakers, independent filmmakers, to have sort of that friendly place to go, but also talent development. So I think the second year we brought in a screenwriting competition. And that's important because it's talent development. So we want to, from the ground up, start to develop the stories of this region and the stories that come from people of this region. So screenwriting. And we did a really great workshop this year, the Leg Up Lab for screenwriters. And we'll start doing Leg Up Labs for directors and for producers. And that's bringing the business side in. How do you work with distributors? How do you get your projects off the ground? So, Whistler does this really, really, really well out west, but they do focus a lot on Western Canada filmmakers. Occasionally there's a couple of Ontario or BC people that make it to Whistler, but the majority of the talent that they end up helping and boosting are talent from their area. So I can sort of see that we have a need for something like that in Ontario, and why not be us? Because we're already starting to position ourselves in that way. And we're in this beautiful location. We're surrounded by these wonderful lakes and this pastoral countryside so it's we're in a good location for it.
In 2020, you changed it up a bit. Unfortunately, because of COVID, you had to hold the festival virtually. Yes. All the amazing, things you mentioned that you were adding on to the festival. Did that make it difficult this year to run some of these programs?
Yes. Well, what happened last year was, the pivot to going completely virtual was a really interesting decision. It really, it started out with the Youth Film Festival, because that's one thing I haven't really mentioned, is we have 3 years ago, that was our new thing to bring on, was the Youth Film Festival. We knew from the beginning that we wanted to inspire future filmmakers. And so the Youth Film Festival is a regional film festival for high school age filmmakers. And sort of inspired, actually, honestly, by my son, who was a teenage filmmaker with nowhere to learn and nowhere to send his films and nowhere to kind of be celebrated. And I know that there's lots of kids out there that are like that. There's lots of kids who really love to communicate this way or tell stories this way. So anyway, I digress. So the Youth Festival is really what started it, because we were doing these wonderful seminars and COVID hit, and suddenly all of our kids didn't have help. They didn't have teachers to help them. They didn't have anything. And we thought, what can we do? So we were taking these seminars around from school board to school board, and we thought, oh, we can't do that now. Well, let's try YouTube Live. And it's turned out to be fantastic. So we did all of our programming for the Youth Festival seminars on YouTube Live last spring, the spring before last, actually. And then when it came time to looking at the festival, it became very apparent that everything was not going to go live in the fall. And we thought, well, we're already a step that way. We've already kind of dabbled in this online, doing things digitally. So let's go all in. So we did. Mm-hmm. Very successful. Went really well. We grew our audience. It was wonderful to see how it's so much more accessible, right? That people can see it from all over. You miss that wonderful, wonderful element of a film festival, however. So we're really excited to come back in person this year, because you do miss that chance to, be side by side. Well, maybe not, shoulder to shoulder this year, but at least in the room with a whole bunch of other people who are having the same kind of experience as you get immersed into a film, and you can sort of feel that energy in the room. They laugh, you laugh. I mean, you gasp at the same time. That shared cinematic experience can't ever be gained in the online platform. But at least you get to see the movie. Yeah.
I completely agree. I'm so excited for this to be
Yes.
back to in person. There's nothing like seeing a movie for the first time with a big audience. I completely agree.
And even better when the filmmaker is there, or somebody from the filmmaking, the key creative team, like that team where you feel like there's people in the room here who made this. It's an amazing, amazing experience. And
so true.
We're not back to that 100% yet this year. Many of the filmmakers are going to be there. Many are, but many aren't going to be able to make it. COVID makes traveling a little bit more difficult, and it makes attending a Q&A by Zoom a little bit easier. So you don't kind of forge through that difficulty to make it happen, right? So some of the Q&As are happening by Zoom, so the filmmaker might not be in the room. But our filmmakers are so looking forward to having an audience reaction to their film.
Right.
Yeah.
And you kind of mentioned that for the Forest City Film Festival, you received submissions from all over Southwestern Ontario. So how did you choose kind of the boundaries for who's able to submit a film for this film festival?
Yeah, we receive films from all over the world, actually. We've got films where the filmmakers are from BC. We've got them from LA. We've got, this year, not as many international films this year, but in past years, the West Bank, we had a fabulous documentary that was shot there. We've had the Netherlands, Chile, just all over, Indonesia.
Amazing.
And what it's shown us is that we are connected, so interconnected to the rest of the world, because even those films, they have connections to this region, right? So they're connected to us. And but to go back to your question, because I just was reacting to that. It's not all from Southwestern Ontario, by all means. Very few of them are actually from Southwestern Ontario.
Very interesting, actually.
So they all have to have a connection to Southwestern Ontario, though?
So what that means, let me explain that, because it's not that they have to be shot here. They just need to have anybody from the key creative team. So that's the director, the writer, any of the lead performers. The sound design is definitely key creative, the cinematographer, producers, any of those kind of team. They have to have spent a portion of their life somewhere in Southwestern Ontario. So that's everywhere west of Toronto, all the way down to Windsor, down to Niagara Falls, up to Owen Sound and Collingwood. So that whole chunk is Southwestern Ontario. And that includes, they could have come here for school. And that's a big influence, having spent your 4 years in post-secondary here. They might have been born here and moved away. We've got Artificial Immortality. Anne Shin is the director, who's really well known, and it's a fabulous film. And she was born in London and raised a little bit in Guelph, and then moved to BC. And so it's still an influence, right? It still is an influence. So
that's very, it's great to hear, especially if you do move away, you can still be celebrated in your hometown for something that you've accomplished.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at when you think Rachel McAdams,
Right,
so
exactly.
she's, you don't think, well, she's an LA girl. No, you think that's a London St. Thomas girl for sure, right? We own her because she's made it huge. But what about all these people in between? There's so many talented people. Oh, I'm so thrilled to be able to celebrate them, because many of them are doing phenomenal work. And we've got, the more I dig, this year we were finally able to hire an intern to help us really do the research. And we've got hundreds and hundreds of people that we are now watching. In past years, we've just sort of had, a few dozen of the really top tier ones, but now hundreds of people that we've got our eye on them.
Very cool. Very cool. There's lots of potential for greatness out there in Southwestern Ontario and the greater world as well. That's super exciting.
Yes.
Before we get into this year's festival, I have 2 questions actually. Before I get into this next one, I actually was just wondering. You mentioned that not a ton of films are filmed in this festival. Are filmed in Southwestern Ontario. What about London in particular? Because you mentioned that things are kind of extending from Toronto downwards. Do films get shot in London often at all? I'm wondering.
Yeah, they're getting a bit more and more now that we have a film office in London. You're going to see more and more in the higher caliber ones being filmed here. Right now, most of the ones that are shot in London tend to be the short films. But we have a really good one this year. It's called Open Your Eyes, and it was all shot in London during the pandemic. And it's a really good movie, a psychological thriller that is just not to be missed.
That's so cool. Because I noticed that even in just I feel like in my lifetime, I don't remember Toronto being such a huge film spot when I was growing up, and now you hear about Jason Momoa was there filming C the other just a few months ago or something, and they filmed the Suicide Squad there and this and that. And it just kind of and the way you're mentioning it, I go, is some of that going to extend down here at some point?
It already has. The Queen's Gambit, right? That was filmed in Cambridge. I mean, that's almost here.
Yeah, that's very close. And I love that show.
The Jason Momoa film you were talking about, part of that was shot in St. Thomas. And Cambridge has a really good film office, so they've been pulling more and more stuff this way. Hamilton has a really huge film office, and they've actually developed a lot of business now. They've got some big studios and everything there, so a lot of the industry is heading west of Toronto. So this is good news for us. We're still a little far out of Toronto to pull a lot of that business, but it is starting to come here. And at the OSCC this year, one of the banner events is we've got a feature film pitch that's worth almost $65,000 now. It was billed as the $60,000 feature film pitch. And we've got 6 incredible feature films that are all pitching here. And they are, they have to shoot at least 50% of their film here in London to get the grant from Film London. So that means that at least one of those is going to shoot mostly in London, but all 6 are now looking at this location as a great place to shoot, because it is. We've got beautiful locations that are unspoiled. And that's the problem with Toronto and Hamilton, is that a lot of places have been spoiled, meaning they've been shot and shot and shot and used over and over and over again. And you can only use them so many times before they start to become really recognizable and not so desirable for a filmmaker.
You do see that more and more now, especially with social media, just those little, like, I can't think of a show in particular, but you do notice where somebody goes, "Oh, that's my apartment back there," or I work in that area, or this and that, you know.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of like TikToks of people hanging out being like, "Oh, but film is getting shot right outside my house. They're pretending to come inside and everything." Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. No, it's cool.
No, but for this year's, before we get into this year's film festival, do you have a favorite memory in particular from the past years?
Oh, what a great question. Thank you for that. That's such a good question. I love it. I've got a few, actually. I mean, the first year when it was really, really small, having people being surprised that it was so cool. It was such a cool experience, and really expressing that. Being really generous with their support and their, just their gratitude for what we were doing. That's always been a good memory. But then there's things like, we had an opening night film. Actually, I'm going to talk first about the preview night film. We had this preview night film about Afghanistan and the soldiers in Afghanistan. And the house was packed with military people. The absolute top brass from Canadian military was there. They had driven in from like Ottawa and places like that. And it was such a moving film. All the participants came up on stage afterwards, and there was a standing ovation that must have lasted 6 minutes. It was just amazing. And just that, hair on everybody's, it was just goosebumps. It was a really incredible situation. And then there was 2 years ago, our last live one, our opening night was a film called Pray. And it was about the Catholic Church and all of the sexual crimes that they've committed, and it was about boys that had been sexually abused by priests, and the court case was going on about that. And it was a fantastic documentary, and we had two of the men who were the subject of the court case in the auditorium, and they did a Q&A after. And same thing, there was a couple of moments where there was some revelations in the Q&A that you would never know, and it made the film even more powerful. And you could have heard a pin drop in a completely full auditorium, completely full house. Everybody was riveted. There were tears in people's eyes, and just riveted. And then that was another one, like a 5-minute standing ovation. And then the next day, we found out that they had won the Supreme Court appeal, because of course they won the case in the documentary, but then of course the Catholic Church appealed it. But we found out during the festival, before the second screening, that they won the appeal. It was huge. It was absolutely huge.
Such a beautiful moment to kind of all share together after that screening, to have all that happen.
Like, they could never happen anywhere but at a film festival.
Yeah.
Like, film on CBC or whatever on Gem, but you could never have had that moment if you hadn't been there. Got to be in the room where it happened.
No, to be a part of that would have been yeah. That's quite a timely thing to happen. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we always sort of strive for things that are really, really relevant and really interesting and really cool on opening nights. And so our opening night this year, we kind of pulled back a little bit. And because of COVID, we're a little bit cozier, right? So we found a film that was shot mostly in Bayfield. And it's really good. And it stars Colm Feore, Barry Pepper and Colm Feore. And so Colm, he's a Southwestern Ontario guy. He lives in Stratford, and he's a phenomenal actor with just such a body of work. Governor Award winning, Emmy Award winning, Juno, not Junos, but the Canadian Awards. Just, he's amazing. And the number of films he's done, he's got to be one of the busiest working actors I've ever come across, film and television, in the Umbrella Academy right now. And he was in House of Cards. And anyway.
What was his name again? I'm sorry. Colm?
Colm, C-O-L-M, Feore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I loved Umbrella Academy.
Yeah. Yeah. And House of Cards. Oh, he won the Canadian Screen Award for his portrayal of Trudeau in the film Trudeau. And so that was one of his real turning points, I don't know, a couple of decades ago. And he's done more and more and more films since then. Bon Cop, Bad Cop was a great Canadian one that he did. It's both of those. Bon Cop.
Remember that movie?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the sequel.
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, so he is he's coming on opening night, and that's a really special film because it's very Southwestern Ontario, and the director Brad Turner grew up in Bayfield and actually went to school in Beale.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
So many connections right into London. It's such a small world when you really start to talk to people. Everyone has a connection to London.
It's true. It's true. And this festival's all about.
All that.
It's so interesting how many people come from London to do cool things, but then also, like yourself, come back to London afterwards too to help like the community that they came from. I think that's super inspirational, that what you're doing.
Yeah, I thought so too. I'm always really impressed how supportive the success stories are. They really do want to keep that connection and help.
All right, so let's get into this year. A very exciting Forest City Film Festival 2021. This year, it's running from October 19th to the October 24th. And this year, it's a mix of live shows and live streams. So was it kind of difficult to do a mix of both in-person and a virtual festival?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, the virtual is all going up, boom, on the 25th, and it's staying up until the 30th. So all of the on-demand virtual films are going up at that time. The Ontario Screen Creators Conference is going out live and live streamed. So in person and live streamed at the same time. So each of those events, and those are important because they're panels. And so if you're watching from home, you may still have a question. So you can interact with those ones. The Q&As, you need to be in the room at the Wolf or at TAP, Center for Creativity, to participate in the Q&As. But we're going to include all the Q&As in the virtual content. So, when you go for the on-demand stuff, you're going to get it all. You'll get little filmmaker intros, you'll get a feature film, a short film, and you'll get the Q&A that happened at the end. So one ticket gets you more than just one film. And virtual, if you don't want to come out to the festival, it's a good backup plan.
Q&As. That I always think of The Life Aquatic when I think of Q&As after films.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of categories for the film festival. The awards that you're setting out. If we could get into that. Before I actually name some of the categories, who votes for this? Like for anybody who doesn't know, how do you win?
Okay, so when you enter, if your film is a certain length, obviously it's a short or a feature, like it falls into one or the other. There's this sort of middle ground, no man's land of more of a TV show size that we've never really figured out how to deal with, but maybe we will. Maybe that's going to be one of the new things coming down the pipe. But so those ones are pretty obvious for submitting. And how do we choose? We start out, there's a platform that we accept films through, Film Freeway it's called. And so all of the films come in, and then we've got committees. So a committee that looks at all the narrative films, both shorts and feature length, and a separate committee that looks at all the documentaries. So those people are our screening committee, and they're actually our selection committee in the end, because they score and rate all of the films in their category. And so we get a large number of people voting on these films, and the good ones filter up to the top, and the bad ones get the bad scores, and they just don't end up being selected. So we end up selecting by those values. So those are what our official selections are. They're selected by a group of people. And then the winners, we have industry judges that we, like people who are in the industry, who watch all of the categories. So we've got a group that watch the narratives and a group that watch the documentaries. We've got an animator who does the animation judging. And, they're usually, we try to find people who are accomplished in the field so that they really know what they're doing. And so we've got some really great judges to help out.
Awesome. Sorry, go ahead, Patrick.
No, sorry about that. The categories are very interesting. You mentioned that there's like the feature narrative, the short narrative, there's documentary and short documentary, but there's also Indigenous programs, which is really cool, and there's animated shorts, experimental film, and music videos, like you mentioned earlier. In comparison to other like film festivals, are these the usual categories that are in most film festivals, or is this kind of exclusive to you guys?
No, I think so. I mean, that short narrative and feature length and documentary and short documentaries, those are very typical. Animations, there's not a whole lot of festivals that accept animations. Feature length animations, not at all. Those are very specialized, and we would never end up having anybody to compete. But the short animations, we were really surprised this year. We had so many, and just spontaneously submitted, and were really great animations. So that category definitely had to continue. Experimental is a new category. It's not in competition, so there's no actual prize money in the experimental category. We're just dipping our toes in. I don't know how you judge experimental films because they're so different from each other, right? And so I'm not sure how you would say who is relevant of winning over somebody else, because like I say, there's so many different things to take into account. It's more just art, right? It's just art in a moving image. The music video category is a no-brainer. That's a terrific category for us because, I mean, music videos are where young filmmakers often start. And it's also where experienced filmmakers go to stretch their creativity and do something really cool. And really, it gives a lot of leeway for creativity. And so for me, I just think it's a fantastic category. I'm really proud of it. But it's also not one that many film festivals have. It's truly different. but we're a different film festival, right? Like we're not following what they do at TIFF. We're not following what they do at Sudbury. We're creating our own path. And sure, we take inspiration from a few different festivals like everybody would, but no, we're truly different. This whole thing about focusing on connections to the region that show how connected we are to the rest of the planet, that kind of thing. So celebrating that regional aspect is very unique. I don't think I found one other festival, but it was after our idea had already been cemented and was being worked on. And that was one in Hawaii. There's one in Hawaii that celebrates films from Hawaii. So, the way that we include the industry, I look at it like we work from 3 pillars. So we look to build pride in regional audiences for the artists that are among us, right? So that's our first pillar. So to do that, we make sure that we select really good films. We're not showing everything just because it's connected. We're selecting things that are going to make people proud of these artists, right? Then our second pillar is to build the capacity of regional filmmakers. So we look to do that by putting on the OSCC and giving them opportunities to network with other filmmakers, but also to show their films, like just to even to show it to a live audience is a great experience for a filmmaker, but so that they can start to really see how people are reacting to their work. And then the third pillar, of course, is to inspire future filmmakers. And we do that through showing great work and bringing great artists back home, showing people that you can do it from here, but also through our youth film festival.
Is there a category that you find receives the most submissions? Like it's just an insane amount. Your submission committee is just overwhelmed with trying to go through all of these and choosing the best ones.
Yeah, I think each year it kind of flip-flops. The shorts there's always a large number of shorts that come in. So the short documentary and short narratives, they're always very full. And we often have to, make some tough choices to narrow that down to the top 15. Originally it started as the top 10, and then it started creeping up because it was so hard to choose only 10 films because there could be so many good ones. And it's really neat because, we get a lot of the graduating films, the thesis films from a lot of different colleges. So as well as professional filmmakers that are out there doing their work and they just have, a film that they really want to bring to life. So that's not an uncommon thing to get submitted to our festival. That's a very common short film type. But then there's also these thesis films from a bunch of schools, and they're the best work of the end of their whole education. And so it's cool because we've become sort of the face-off of all of these different film schools around the country. And we see their work coming here. If anybody on the team was from this region, it's now sort of become a place you definitely want to be submitting here. So
you're inspiring me. I want to make a movie now and submit something.
Awesome. Great. Do it. Find your team. That's my biggest advice to anybody who wants to make a movie, is find a team. You've got to have a team. This is not a solo endeavor. And that's the reason also we don't get a lot of feature-length films, because they are colossal undertakings. And from an independent filmmaker to make a really good feature film, like the world conspires against you. It's difficult to get funding. It's hard to get the time set aside if you're trying to craft it out of, you've got a full-time job and this is your side hustle. And a lot of independent filmmakers are at that stage where they're trying to do that. And if they're lucky enough to be making a living in the industry, they still have to take the paying jobs before they do their independent films, right? So the independent films are really difficult to make. And getting that funding in Canada is maybe a little bit easier than it is in other places in the world in some ways, because we've got some really great programs that allows that to happen, some really great funding. But at the same time, it's still really difficult because getting that funding is limited to people who hit a certain level, and you've got to do stuff to get to that level, to get seen by the funding agencies and taken seriously. So having things like the OSCC, let me just say, participating in those, that's where you find your team. That's where you find the connections in the industry to help you move it forward. Like, this is where filmmakers should be going. If they've got a dream of doing this, this is where it starts. Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting a pump-up speech every time you speak about, like, all right, I'm getting ready. Let's figure it out. I wanted to ask a little bit more about the Youth Film Festival, because I just think it's such a great kind of add-on to this Forest City Film Festival. Like, what has been the most surprising thing that you've seen that's come out of the Youth Film Festival?
Oh my gosh, we got so many great alumni. This is only its third year. And so this is one of the best things, is finding these artists at a young age, like finding the ones who have a natural affinity for this. And it might take them a couple of years to get a little bit of the knowledge that it takes to get to the place where they can really shine with that natural ability. But I just I love those moments when those kids really start to hit their stride, and to know that we've given them this opportunity before they go to university. And like, I've had so many people come to me and say, God, if that had, I got all the way through university before I realized what I wanted to do was film and television and that world. And if I had known before that this was even a possibility, it would have changed my life. And, I've had kids who I know we've changed their life. I know there was one boy who came to a seminar who was autistic, and his teacher came up to me after, and this kid had asked so many questions. He had his hand up all the time, and he was clearly knowledgeable too. Like, it was about sound, and he knew mics and he knew everything. And the teacher came up and said, this kid has huge challenges and he very rarely ever asks anything. And this, I can see now, is his career. This is his career path. And, there's like kids with different abilities, people who are autistic. This is actually, there's parts of this industry that's perfect for them. Like editing in a dark room where you don't have to talk to many people. That's brilliant for some people. Like doing like just working in the tiny but very deep silos that are what people do when they get to an extreme level of knowledge on something. And that's what it is about filmmaking, is that you're finding these people who have these great depths of knowledge. They're not generalists. And you want to work with those people to make your project shine, make it just brilliant. And that's, I don't know how we got into that, but the Youth Film Festival. Finding the kids and giving them that opportunity to start to get that understanding. And those moments are wonderful.
And what days this year is the Youth Film Festival for our listeners?
The Youth Film Festival is on the 21st, Thursday, the 21st, and it goes from 6:30 until 8:30 or so. It's just so awesome to see these films. There's such a wide range, but when you get them up on the big screen, they are all so good and so interesting. I really highly recommend coming down and checking that one out. It's also, it will be available online starting on I think I can't remember off the top of my head right now, 'cause it's got so many little things. I can't remember if we're live streaming that on YouTube Live at the same time, or if that's going to go on YouTube. I think it is YouTube Live at the same time. So there's a cost for coming and doing it, seeing it live in the theater, but I think it's free if you just watch it on YouTube.
Very cool.
So no excuses. Everybody be watching it.
Yeah, and check out some of these up and coming talents. Just great. It's so great.
There's so much more than just the screenings going on during the festival, such as the industry sessions. You mentioned earlier that Colm Fiore is going to be there. There's also some incredible speakers like Emma Donoghue and David Shore. Do you mind tell us a little bit more about the speakers and what the attendees can expect from that? Yeah,
absolutely. So we've got these behind the scenes series of talks. So that's Colm Fiore, Emma Donoghue, and David Shore. So Emma Donoghue, we all from London know and love Emma. She's a phenomenal writer. She's a very generous personality who she she's just so smart and lovely. So she, what many people will know, she was nominated for an Academy Award for her screenplay of Room, her adaptation of her own book. And Brie Larson won the Academy Award on that film, and the film was nominated as Best Picture, and it was huge. Phenomenal film. Well, she shot her latest adaptation of one of her books, The Wonder, and they shot that in Ireland in August with I can't remember the name of the director right now, but Academy Award winning director, and Florence Pugh, who is sort of like the darling actress of independent film these days, and she's an amazing actress. So Emma's going to come and give us a behind the scenes on what it was like to shoot that, and what it was like to shoot Room, and what it's like working at that level in the industry. It's a whole different level, that international co-productions with Academy Award winning films, and really significant budgets. And then David Shore is coming. He's Emmy Award winning. He was the creator of House and The Good Doctor. And
I love House. That's my favorite show of all time, House.
He's the writer and creator of that, and Emmy Award winning. And he just won the Canadian Screen Award Lifetime Achievement Award for writing. I think it's the Margaret Collier Award or something like that from the Canadian Screen Awards. So that's going to be amazing, because he's really inside Hollywood. He really he knows it. He knows it well, and he's very savvy. And Tom Harrington from CBC, from the News at 6, he's doing the interviews. So that's just going to be an amazing talk. So I cannot wait for that. That's at RBC Place. Emma Donoghue is at Wolf Performance Hall, and Colm Fiore is at Wolf Performance Hall. And I think I mentioned before, he's the Gemini winning, and he's won he's an Order of Canada. He's got hundreds of film projects, and has worked with amazing actors from at every level of film and stage. So really incredible actor. And then besides that, we've got all of these panels. We've got panels on I'm blanking on the diverse voices. That's what I was trying to think. Diverse voices through an authentic lens is one where we'll just talk to young filmmakers who are all coming from different diverse backgrounds, and that is chaired by or led by Samara Smallwood, who is an actress. She's the co-chair of Actors Diversity Committee and stuff like that. And we've got buyers panel, where you can come and learn what CBC is looking for, Bell 5, Chorus Entertainment. Oh my God, they've got so many stations. We've got somebody coming to talk from that. Blue Ant Media, places like that. So there's a funding panel. There's like, honestly, the best thing is just to go on to fcff.ca and look under the industry panel to the Ontario Screen Creators Conference, because we've got 14 different events that you're going to find something that you love. One of my favorites is Shit Sound. It's the whole—
I was just going to mention that one. Yeah, I saw that and I was like, I think our listeners would like that one. It looks so cool.
It's the whole team from Schitt's Creek, their whole sound team. And so it just shows you how
cool
sound is even on a TV series. I mean, those are the invisible things when you're watching TV. If you're not in the industry, you would never give sound a second thought. But yet, when you know what goes into sound, you start to understand that even TV shows have Foley added to them. There's all this leveling. There's people who do nothing but the dialogue. So that's all they work on day in, day out, is making dialogue perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Shit Sound. And I'm really looking forward to that one. There's funding panel, an amazing one on documentary design. That's going to be really, really interesting too for documentary filmmakers or people who aspire to do that, because it's all about all of the new styles of making a documentary and how to kind of how the design of a documentary moves the narrative forward and really adds a lot of punch to the documentary.
Yeah, I was going to say there's one that I think Patrick should go to. I'm talking to you now, Patrick, but also a lot of our listeners who we started up really talking mostly to musicians is the Music Sync Summit. That's how to like put music to movies, which is just like, I know our family, when we watch movies, it's always like at the end, we're waiting, watching the credits go to like, who wrote that song? What's that song that was in that scene? Because it meant so much during that it's like, we need to figure it out. We need to download it. So I think that one's going to be awesome.
As a musician, how do you get your music into movies?
Mm-hmm.
So the supervisors, the people who help filmmakers match their film with the right music pieces, they're coming to this to talk, and music publishers and that sort of thing. So it's a really good opportunity for, we've kind of tied that in with the music video night, because that's our one event that takes place at 100 Kellogg Lane. So that's like the factory. So we've got a great venue there for the music video night. And the Music Sync Summit is going on there also, because the two kind of go hand in hand, don't they? Definitely go, Patrick.
Yes.
No, I've got to now. The pressure's on.
Pressure is
called out.
But if our listeners could only attend one event during the festival, I know maybe you don't want to play favorites, but would you suggest one in particular?
Well, I'd have to know what their interests are, because that's the thing. Like if you are somebody who's a creative and really wants to learn how to make film, then how to get started, it's the funding panel is really good, actually, believe it or not, because you don't get very far without funding. Or go to the panel where you see who's buying things, so that you can kind of start to get an idea of what kind of projects have legs, what you can actually make and be paid to make. But if you don't, if you're not a creative, but you love, you love horror films, we've got some really good ones this year. The Open Your Eyes that I mentioned earlier is a psychological thriller. It's not really a flat out horror film, but it's a psychological thriller, and it's just so good, not to be missed. That's Friday night. So Friday night, we've kind of put the scary films on Friday night. I'm Sorry If I Took a Toll on You is another one that's actually set up on the shores of Lake Huron. And that's a horror film.
Cool.
Very, very creepy and very, it'll have you on the edge of your seat. If you really like comedies, Terry's Car Gets Stolen. It's a a first feature film from the filmmaker who's actually been in London shooting his second film now. He's been shooting it over the past 2 months in the London area. And I think he's got it all in the can now. But this was his first film, and it's super amusing. It's really funny. Or if you want, like if you're a little bit, you like documentaries, I don't even know which documentary I could, there's so many good documentaries. I don't even know how I would narrow it down to one. Put the titles in a hat and just go pick one, and you're going to be happy with whichever one you get. Mm-hmm. You know, so go on our website at fcf.ca under the films and check it out, because they're listed there by category. So just go and take a look at the feature documentaries and the feature narratives. And then the shorts are all kind of, you know, we've got a few shorts bundles, but every feature film has a short with it. So it's kind of, you know, we've just peppered in some really good short films in all of the features. So you get to experience a little bit of the short films. But a lot of people love those short groupings of films, and they're all really good this year. So I can't answer you. Sorry, Patrick, which one?
No, that was great. That was great. I'd rather you give us a nice little peppering of everything anyways.
Okay. Yes. Totally depends on the person. Mm-hmm. The Indigenous programs, let me just talk about that for a bit, because you mentioned those as, you know, being, they're not actually in competition. These are curated. We've got a bunch of different Indigenous things happening. I really feel and have felt from the beginning that we're telling the stories of people from this region, and we can't do that without really paying a lot of attention to our Indigenous people and their stories. And we need to get to know them better. These are our stories. They should be part of our culture across the board. And so I'm so thrilled that we've been able to curate both 2 programs of Indigenous films, but also we've had Indigenous filmmakers submitting their films to the festival, and these films just get in. They're not getting in because they're Indigenous films. They get in because they're fabulous films, and they're great storytellers. So it's really wonderful. I don't think there's any category. Well, maybe if we don't have any Indigenous film in the feature narrative in competition, but we have got a feature narrative that's Indigenous, and that's Beans. Feature documentary, that's the one we don't have an Indigenous, but we've got one in animation, we've got short documentaries, we've got narratives, short narratives, and an animated short, as I say, and experimental films and music videos. They're across every category. So it's pretty great. It's pretty great.
I love that. I'm glad that more attention is being brought to Indigenous, really anything, studies going on, or just practices with being more knowledgeable about our history, like you mentioned, and their history, and how it relates in media as well. You know, there are lots of fantastic filmmakers and just people in the film industry in general that are Indigenous. Just like this past year, Blood Quantum came out, and that was an incredible film. I was actually going to ask if that came through the film festival circuit at all. Yeah,
we screened that in middle of August. Was that our August film or September film? No, that was our August film. So
amazing.
Film club screenings downtown, and so those ones tend to be films that come through that are winners of the Canadian Screen Awards, or we stick with Canadian films just because we're sort of thinking about community on just a larger scale. It's because we're still part of the Canadian community, right? So we're still trying to keep that. But that was one. You're right. It was brilliant. And you know, like our culture is like, we're from this land. This land is filled with their culture. We need to embrace that culture, because it's of the land and it's where we are, and it's, you know, it's and there's so much that we can learn from their cultures, multiple cultures. They've got a lot
I completely agree.
Their cultures. just as we do. I mean, everybody's got beauty in their cultures, but we've got to really embrace theirs.
Do you have, this is probably a very difficult question, but do you have a favorite film that you've seen thus far in the Forest City Film Festival?
Oh, no, I really don't. I've never been able to do that favorite film thing. I just have so many, you know, I've really, and for me, it's also partly the experiences that go along with the films. You know, like I've absolutely loved seeing the Christy Garland's work. Or the first film that she's a Londoner, and she's you know, gone away and done some documentaries, and her documentaries take years to make. I mean, she follows people for 6 or 7 years and crafts these incredible documentaries. And the first one that she brought to our film festival was called Cheer Up. And it was about the worst cheerleading team in Finland. And it was so good because it was, and she had followed this team of cheerleaders from, you know, like a few seasons of losing, and every year they kept on trying to pull it together, and they never quite did it. And that was wonderful. I love that film, and I love the work that she did with her film From the Gaza Strip. She followed a young Palestinian girl who she wanted to become part of the Palestinian security forces. And this girl, her name was Walla, and the film was called What Walla Wants. This girl, her mother was imprisoned for being a terrorist. And so she had, you know, a big chip on her shoulder, and she was not an easy person to follow, but Christy did this, and like a fly on the wall, like invisible. I mean, stuff like that amazes me when I see the quality of a filmmaker who can create something and craft something that is so difficult, and you might not even realize it's difficult until you've been in the industry and you've tried it yourself, and you realize the obstacles that they had to go through to do it. And because I do come from the industry, and I've done, you know, a fair bit, I have that respect, and so it's those films that I really, really, really love when I see that quality get up there.
Is there anything else that you'd like our listeners to know before we get into our London-based questions? You know, like how to purchase tickets, information about watching virtually, that kind of thing?
I forgot that we had listeners because I've just been so enjoying this conversation. I don't even remember if I've said everything, but yes, FCFF.ca has got huge amounts of information. The films are available all in person, and then the virtual screenings start like after the 25th, on the 25th for those 5 days. So the ticketing is a little complex. I apologize to everybody out there if you have difficulty transitioning from in person to where you find the virtual ones. I think we've got it ironed out, but it's always, you know, because this year is also new. There's different things we've been having to try to get that ticketing platform under control. But yeah, there's lots to see, and I think pretty much everywhere you turn, you're just not going to be disappointed.
Love it.
It's very exciting that we have a film festival in our hometown. It's pretty cool, if we could do say so ourselves.
And you know what I want to say? Okay, we have a film festival in this town that is not like any film festival. Like, this film festival really does stand out. If you've been to other film festivals, this one can stand alongside any of them for the quality of the work that's in it, for the way it's run and the vibe that you get when you go, the feeling that you get, for the conversations that happen. Like, and just the way that it's been conceived and put together makes it really special and really unique. And I think that we should be proud as Londoners that this has all come together like this, and that we've got it here among us. We can celebrate it.
You don't have to travel, hours for this. It's right here.
Right here. You don't have to travel to Toronto. So TIFF's got it's got lots of reasons to go to TIFF. It's great, but it's expensive. We're a fraction of the cost. You don't have to pay for parking to the extent. You don't have to pay, the huge bucks for parking. You don't have to pay for the hotel. We're here. It's fun.
Just take the bus. It's perfect. Save money too. It's a great idea. I love this.
Could ride your bike still. It's still nice weather.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get all those good bike paths downtown now.
So October 19th to 24th, Forest City Film Festival. Be there or be square. At least get to something.
Yes, please. It'd be wonderful to see everybody.
All right.
So I'm nervous. What do you fire at me?
We're going to start off with just some London-based questions. Where London's pretty cool. We want to know some of your local faves. So what would you say is your favorite place to eat here in the city?
Whoa, favorite place to eat. Oh my gosh, I love pad thai, and I really love Bangkok pad thai on Richmond Street.
Mm-hmm.
They're good. It's one of my faves. I've got a lot of favorites though. I love the Greek house on Richmond. I love Che Restaurant downtown. That's Latin American, South American food. Oh, the best ceviche anywhere. Love that stuff. And his yucca poutine. Gotta check out the yucca poutine at Che.
You're the first person who's mentioned Che Resto Bar, so that's very cool. Well, listeners, check out Che Resto Bar.
Oh yeah.
So how about we are the city of neighborhoods, London, Ontario. Do you have a favorite neighborhood?
Oh yeah. Well, I live up in the north in the Stony Brook area. I love the trails around here. I love the access to the river. I think we're so lucky in London to have the trails that we've got. They're honestly so beautiful. You can ride your bike from one end of the city to the other. And at times you can forget you're even in a city. It's just so beautiful. But I like Stony Brook because I like the access to those trails, Stony Brook, Masonville area.
Mm-hmm.
But I also Old North. I love the Salmon. I love the Deutsche Park and those great places in Old North.
Lots of great biking trails to connect all through there as well.
Yeah.
What would be a London small business that you couldn't live without?
Whoa. That's difficult. I'm trying to think. Well, there's a really great dry cleaner that I love. And I think they're a London small business. I'm just trying to remember the name of them because they're just up on Adelaide and Fanshawe and right in the Sobeys Plaza there. And they are the service there is just phenomenal. I just love these people. They're just so friendly and look after things really, really well.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty
sure we're
going
to say the same thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we've been to that one as well.
Yeah,
it's a great spot.
Yeah, they're really, really nice. Yeah, they seem to love their business, like they seem to love looking after your clothes.
So first time we've heard of a dry cleaning business. This is an interesting group of
It's
favorites.
usually like a coffee shop or a restaurant or something like that.
I like it. Yeah.
I mean, I do, like, I love Reset Coffee. I love that place. I haven't been there enough over the past few months. I don't know. I feel so busy. I haven't taken the time to go to my favorite coffee shop, and I love Loco Espresso. I think there's probably lots of people who have said that because that's a popular place. It's so charming.
If you were to have the perfect day in London, what would that entail for you?
The perfect day. Okay. Maybe going for a bike ride on these gorgeous trails that we have. Stopping at the forks of the Thames, maybe grabbing an ice cream cone at the markets. And then, I love Zenza pizza. So maybe a Zenza pizza would be a really good way to kind of tie that little downtown visit. And then biking back to my area up here in the north, and maybe stopping at the Waltzing Weasel and having a beer on their patio.
I miss the Waltzing Weasel. I haven't been there since the pandemic started. Gotta get back now.
Oh yeah.
It's a favorite in our family. We're the same. We grew up in that area, so going to the Weasel after soccer games, or when all of us turned 19, that's where we started off. So
not even. We were there. Not drinking, but we were there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Having a round of mini golf and
oh yeah,
bringing your slushie inside, it's fine, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
What would you say is a hidden gem in the city? And this could be a person, place, or thing.
Oh, a hidden gem. Oh wow, there's a few answers that. I mean, if you've never walked at the seminary, that's really beautiful in there. The trails along the top of the hill, and then going towards King's College in that area, and all of the trails back by the river. It really does feel like you're not in a city, and such a beautiful building, the SAM. It's gorgeous. So maybe that would be one of my favorite hidden.
I love that. I love the trails that are around the city. You're absolutely right. There's so many great spots where, like the Elsie Perry and Williams estate, where all like the trails back there. Yeah, you hop back in and you're just like, I'm transported to a magical land out here with my dog, and I get to just run around and be free. It's amazing out here.
Yeah. I hope that we always keep these kind of beautiful tucked away green spaces in the city. I hope it doesn't all get developed into one monotone town, because it's really, it really has some beautiful special places. That's a great one, Elsie Perrin. And I like exploring around and finding those little things.
Yeah, there's lots of little trail starts at in neighborhoods that you don't expect.
Yeah, very true.
So we are going to get into, if you don't mind, our last section of the show. It's a little game that we have. It's called This or That. So if you can't tell already, this is a game about choice, just between two choices. We're going to give you a list of options, and it's a rapid fire. So just as fast as you can, we're going to try and give you options within the city, and you're going to pick your favorite.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
I think so. Give it.
All right. First one is Western Fair Market or Covent Garden Market?
Whoa, tough choice. Whoa. Because I love them both for different reasons. Okay, I'm going to say I'm going to say Covent Garden.
Sunfest or Home County?
Sunfest or Home County? Sunfest or Home County? Sunfest.
I know it's so tough, right?
God, as soon as I say it, I regret my decision.
Masonville Mall or White Oaks Mall?
Masonville Mall. That was easy for me.
Yeah.
What about Wortley Village or Old East Village?
Oh, yeah, Wortley Village.
Springbank Park or Harris Park?
Springbank Park.
What about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Watch goose poop. There's a lot less goose poop in Springbank. Downtown, in my opinion.
The goose problem when you go to those parks is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Somebody, there's homeless, there's hungry people out here in this world. Can we not see that one can solve the other? Oh.
What about, oh, sorry, go ahead. What about Fanshawe College or Western University?
Oh, come on, too. That's how could you choose? Western University.
Fire roasted coffee or black walnut coffee?
Which, black walnut or?
Fire roasted.
Black walnut.
And Highland Theater or Mustang Drive-In?
Oh, Highland Theater.
Love the Highland.
Love the Highland.
Love it. This one might be a little easier. Would you rather bike on the TVP or hike in one of our environmentally significant areas?
That isn't easy. I want to do both. Can I just do both? Okay, I'm going to say hike in the environmental. We've got so many beautiful hiking trails. So many.
We didn't ask if you partake in alcohol, but the last one here is Storm State or Powerhouse.
Oh, that's tough. Oh, Powerhouse though, because they're like at 100 Kellogg Lane, and that's unbelievable. So beautiful.
What a cool space. Yeah.
It's such a cool space. That's another thing we could be pretty proud of in London. And, we're lucky that we've got the people who own and run that have been able to hang on through this pandemic. So I hope everybody out there gets out and supports 100 Kellogg Lane to help them get out the other side of the pandemic, because man, that's going to be an amazing space.
We were super lucky to speak to them in a past episode, and they explained some of the plans they have for that place, and it's super exciting.
It's just going to get better.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that pretty well runs the gamut of the show. This is a good opportunity, Dorothy, if you wanted to just mention anything else to our listeners you wanted to before we wrap it up.
All right. Well, come out and support the coolest film festival in Canada. And you don't have to go anywhere to do it, because it's right here in London. If you're listening from London, you don't have to go anywhere. The October 19th to 24th in person, we've got a really cool event happening on the 16th, and Colm Fjords on the 17th. So we do have a couple of outliers that happen prior to the 19th, but from the 19th to the 24th, do not miss it. Come out, support us, show us your love by coming and seeing at least one screening in person. And then, it's fine if you want to catch all the rest at home, but at least make it out to one for us.
Amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dorothy, for taking the time tonight. It was a very quick turnaround from asking to having this interview. So thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us all about the Forest City Film Festival.
Thank you so much. And thank you for doing what you do to kind of shine a light on some of the great stuff that's happening around the city. Really appreciate what you do. I'm Dorothy Downs, founder and executive director of the Forest City Film Festival, and you are listening to London's Pretty Cool podcast.